tonight, AEW Fight for the Fallen. We've done a preview earlier today about the AEW World Championship match between Jon Moxley and Brian Cage, scheduled to take place tonight. But we're going to do something now, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Tag Team Dream match that is scheduled for this show between FTR and the Lucha Brothers, Pentagon Jr. and Rey Fenix. I am really excited for this match. I think this is going to be the match, in my opinion, that I'm looking forward to the most. I think it's going to be the match that's going to be the best match on the show. The moment last week that AEW announced that we were going to have FTR versus the Lucha Brothers, that was the match I was looking forward to. Forget the AEW World Championship match. That is a big match, and that will be the main event match of the show. Forget any other match announced for this show. Forget Cody Rhodes versus Sonny Kiss, and there's no slight to anyone else performing on this show. But this is the match, isn't it? This is the match. FTR versus the Lucha Brothers. This is one of those matches, and this is one of those opponents and combinations of putting these teams together. It's something that I think a lot of people thought about and dreamt about when we knew that FTR were likely to be coming into AEW, or that we knew officially that FTR were in AEW, was matches against the Lucha Brothers, right? People thought FTR versus the likes of the Young Bucks, that's something that everyone wants to see. FTR versus Santana and Ortiz, FTR versus Private Party, etc. Those are great matches, but the Lucha Brothers are up there with the Young Bucks as the two teams that I really like to see FTR face off against the most, and we're going to get that tonight. Should they have saved it for a later date? Maybe, and you might be right with that. It does seem slightly hot-shotted and slightly a bit of a waste to have it just randomly now, Fight for the Fallen. And I only say randomly now because we only knew that Fight for the Fallen was going to happen last week. Or a couple of weeks ago, rather. We knew that was the case. So it's only been on the cards a couple of weeks. And then obviously FTR versus the Lucha Brothers was actually only announced last week. They have had the rivalry going back a few weeks now, at least. Obviously, we had the tag team match last week on AEW Night 2 of AEW Fighter Fest. Or was it on Night 1? It all blends into one. I believe it was Night 2, wasn't it? We had the Young Bucks and FTR go up against the Lucha Brothers and Blade and the Butcher. That was the match of the show for me. Obviously, I did really enjoy the Chris Jericho versus Orange Cassidy match, but I'm just such a big fan of not only FTR, but I'm just a huge fan of the Lucha Brothers. I think that they are just incredible. People will criticize them for their tag team psychology when it comes to the tag ropes, when it comes to how long they stay in the ring for, when it comes to their high spots. Yes, and that criticism is absolutely merited, and it's justified. I do believe it is people's perception of what tag team wrestling should be, though, and it does come down to styles of wrestling. People will say, well, why doesn't a certain style have any psychology, etc.? That is just because sometimes that is the style in which Mexican tag team works. If you go to Mexico, you go watch AAA, or you go and watch a promotion in Mexico, that is the style. It's a style that's made the Lucha Brothers famous in terms of their tag team wrestling. Not necessarily with their singles wrestling, but in terms of their tag team wrestling, it's what made them famous. It's what's got them to AEW in the first place. So I don't expect them, or nor should they, change anytime soon. Like I said, I think the reason this match against FTR is going to work so well and is so exciting, and is the match I'm looking forward to the most tonight, is because it's such a clash of styles, right? FTR are the throwback tag team. They wrestle the old school tag team style way. They cut off the ring. They use the tag ropes. Quick, frequent tags. Yes, they have a couple of tag team finishes, but they're not doing high flying spots. They're not jumping over the top rope. They're doing none of that. They can. If you've asked Cash Wheeler, he says that, like, yeah, I can do that. I can do a 450. I can do all of that sort of stuff. But as the heel tag team, why should I if it doesn't make any sense? And I totally agree with that. And again, I think it comes down to preference, and it comes down to what you prefer to watch, and it comes down to what you enjoy the most. It doesn't make any style of wrestling more correct than the other. Some style might make more sense to you than, say, the Lucha Brothers style. It doesn't mean that it's no less as good or no less rewarding to watch. So when you have the FTR style, which is very old school, in your face, methodical, psychologically sound, and then you have going up against someone like the Lucha Brothers, who all of that sort of stuff that we've just mentioned about FTR just gets thrown completely out of the window, right? It's just completely different. Psychology, to be honest, isn't there. The use of the tag rope isn't there. but you are going to see some absolutely crazy stuff that you are going to have your jaw on the floor and say, what was that? That is the most insane thing I've ever seen. Case in point, last week, Rey Fenix, during that match, it is so good to see Rey Fenix back in an AEW ring. He did pick up an injury just before Double or Nothing. He was meant to be in that casino ladder match, which is a massive shame we didn't get to see him in that match, because Rey Fenix with a ladder, just some unbelievable things can happen there. But Rey Fenix, last week, just seeing him back in the ring, doing what he did, he was doing C4s off the top ropes. He then did the spot, which and I still don't know how this is possible, and I'm going to try and do it justice with my words, but my words will never do it justice when I try and explain what happened. So all the guys are fighting on the outside of the ring. I'm not a massive fan of that spot of fighting on the outside of the ring waiting to catch someone who's obviously going to do a big spot. That is overdone to hell in the wrestling business, but I'll overlook it on this spot because it was something crazy happened instead. Instead, you had Pentagon Jr. was on his hands and knees by the ropes, sort of Hardy Boy style, to act as I don't know what you would call it, a vault for Rey Fenix. And he somehow hits a Canadian destroyer, or just a destroyer, I guess, a destroyer on Mac Jackson off the top of Pentagon Jr.'s back and onto the group of wrestlers fighting at ringside. It's the craziest thing. I mean, it has to be one of the most innovative spots I've seen in a long, long time. And to be honest, I've soured quite a lot when it comes to the destroyers at this point, because every match, it feels at this point, you see a Canadian destroyer, or every match you see a form of a destroyer, and it never ends in a finish, which to me is just crazy, because every time I used to see the Canadian destroyer for the longest time was my favorite finisher move. The flip pile driver is one of the most aesthetically pleasing and just looks great and looks absolutely devastating moves out there. And every time Petey Williams would hit that in TNA back in the day, it was just like, okay, one, it's over, and two, it was like, that is amazing. It's the most incredible finish I've ever seen. It looks devastating. It looks like he's killed someone every time he's done it. That finish is unbelievable. And then something's happened over the last 5 years when it comes to the Canadian destroyer, or just destroyers in general. Everyone does them, and I don't know why. Everyone's just decided I can do that, or people, I guess, are more and more willing to take them, more and more willing to do them. Look, the level of athlete in professional wrestling has improved immensely over the last 10, 15 years, let alone the last 5 years. So maybe people are just more able to do them now, or it's just an easier move. But the Canadian Destroyer for me now has become a filler move, a transition spot, whatever you want to call it. It's just not the same as what it was, and it's a shame to see that. But last week, that spot with Rey Fenix was just... I can't... I mean, even now, trying to describe it, I'm speechless. It was that good and that out of this world. So I really enjoyed that match. I was surprised last week that FTR and the Young Bucks didn't pick up the win. Of course, the Lucha Brothers and Blade and the Butcher did get the victory. Big win for them, and it probably tells the story more for FTR and the Young Bucks. I said going into that match, whilst you had the Lucha Brothers and Blade and Butcher on the other side, the whole match was actually about the Young Bucks versus FTR. That's the match we're going to see eventually, whether it is all out, whether it is for the Tag Team Championships or not. It's the match we are going to see very, very soon. I have no doubts about that. So really excited to see that match when it happens. That is the dream match. Along with this match, like I said, I'd rather they built this up a bit more. I think FTR versus the Lucha Brothers could be something really, really, really exciting. How they build it up, I don't know. I guess soon we're going to have FTR probably going to be heels, and then once they're heels, can you really do the heel versus heel tag team match in FTR versus the Lucha Brothers? We'll have to see. It's also great, I must add in as well, to see Pentagon Jr. back in an AEW ring. We hadn't seen him for the longest time due to the whole COVID pandemic and quarantine and all of that stuff. We just hadn't seen him because of the travel restrictions coming in from Mexico. Of course, he travels in from Mexico very often. Those restrictions, I believe, have been lifted, or he's over in America, staying in America now, so the travel is a lot easier. But we're seeing a lot more of Pentagon Jr. back in an AEW ring, which is great. The one thing I will say about the Lucha Brothers, and then we'll get on to the predictions here. The one thing I will say about the Lucha Brothers, and I've mentioned this over and over and over again, and I'm sure people that are regular listeners probably get bored of hearing me say it. And the Lucha Brothers, like I said, they're one of my favorite teams. I think they're just so much fun to watch. I think their look is great. I think their entrance is great. Then with Pac as Death Triangle, when Pac eventually gets back, it's just going to be it's great television, and it is really, really great to watch. But there is part of me, I don't know. I do want to see them have singles runs at some point in AEW, and I know they're such a great tag team, and I know they are one of the best tag teams in the world. AEW as a tag team division has the best tag team division, bar none, in the world. Nobody can touch that tag team division. I don't care what anyone says. I've put this on Twitter before. I've said, oh, AEW have the best tag team division in the world. And they're like, yeah, oh yeah, of course it's stacked. Well, it is. It is. That's when agendas come into it. Because some people, they just can't admit these things. I admit, so for instance, the last couple of weeks, so NXT has won the overall viewership. Let's forget the demos, but NXT, they've had more viewers the last few weeks because arguably they've put on bigger shows. That is just what the case is. I know, for instance, last week, Fyter Fest Night 2, it had some great matches on. It had the 8-man tag, it had Jericho versus Orange Cassidy, but going up against a winner-take-all match for the NXT Championship and the NXT North American Championship, it's a no contest. Obviously, NXT is the bigger show that week. So, and I have no agenda saying that because I like both products. I don't lean either way on both products. If something is obvious, I tell the truth and I say what I think. When it comes to AEW, their tag team division, of course they have the biggest and best tag team division in the world. Do I have to rattle off the tag teams again? Because every time I do, I always forget one. But I'll try and do it here. The Young Bucks, FTR, the Lucha Brothers, Santana and Ortiz, Private Party, Kenny Omega, Hangman Page. I can keep going if you want me to. Jurassic Express, Blade and the Butcher. It's ridiculous. That's 8 tag teams. Best Friends, 9. Do I have to keep going? Dark Order, 10. That's 10, and I'm probably still forgetting another 5 or 6 because the division is that deep and it's that good. And it's a selling point for AEW because if you compare it to WWE and NXT, tag team wrestling just isn't important to them. It's not a slight against WWE. I wish they would take tag team wrestling more seriously, but that's just what it is. That is how WWE and NXT have been. Not necessarily as much NXT because in the past you had a DIY, you had the revival, obviously, but WWE, they just don't take it seriously. It's not a selling point for them. For AEW it is, and they have the best tag team division in the world. But going back to my original point before I start ranting again, the Lucha Brothers, rather. See, I can get myself so worked up. I'm just saying FTR over again. The Lucha Brothers, while they are one of the best tag teams in the world and one of the best tag teams in AEW, I still would like to see a singles run at some point from them. I think Pentagon Jr., I first became more familiar with his work in Lucha Underground, and he was largely a singles during that time, and has been a singles on the independent scene as well. His work as a singles is great, and you got to remember a few years ago, back at All Out, you had Kenny Omega going up against, was it All In? Sorry, All In. You had Kenny Omega going up against Pentagon Jr. in a singles match because Pentagon Jr. was that big a star on his own. And that goes the same with Rey Fenix. Rey Fenix was a single star. We saw him in Lucha Underground. Yes, they're great as a tag team, but I still think they could do great things as a singles. Maybe it's best for them to be a tag team at the moment because the singles roster in AEW is so bloated. But when it comes to, say, a Chris Jericho at the moment, because he's not the AEW World Champion, he's looking to work with fresh guys he's never worked before, and most importantly, getting these guys over. That's why he's working with an Orange Cassidy. That's why he's been working with in the past with a Jungle Boy, with a Scorpio Sky, with a Darby Allin. His aim is to get these younger guys over, or these less established guys that haven't been in the WWE. He wants to get them over. He wants to make AEW stars of their own. I would love to see a Chris Jericho versus Pentagon Jr. feud. How great would that be? Or a Chris Jericho versus Rey Fenix feud. Rey Fenix, to me, can be absolutely anything he wants to be in AEW. I think eventually he will transition out of the Lucha Brothers tag team and move on to singles wrestling because he can easily be a world champion. He can easily be AEW world champion, in my opinion. I really, really think so. You look at how much WWE has struggled and tried and struggled to replace Rey Mysterio in WWE. How often and how many times have they tried to bring in the next big Latino babyface star or whatever, and it's just not worked? Sin Cara, Alberto Del Rio, Humberto Carrera. In the end, they had to bring Rey Mysterio back because it just wasn't working. They needed that star back. Now, obviously, they've got the likes of Angel Garza and Andrade that might be able to do that now, but AEW, they've done it first time. They've got the one if they want him. He's right there, Rey Fenix. Rey Fenix, to me, can be the next Rey Mysterio. And that is really big words, but Rey Fenix is just that good. He is just that good, whether it's the moves he can do in the ring, the matches that he has, the look, the mask, the entrance, all of it. I just think he is so talented and has so much potential in the future. And he's so young as well. I believe he's still in his 20s. It's crazy. Pentagon Jr. is a bit older, so maybe it's worth pulling the trigger on Pentagon Jr. now and getting the most out of that singles run now in AEW. Because I think they're both money. And like I said, while I do really enjoy their tag team matches, and they are one of the best tag teams in the world, whilst you have such a packed division, I don't see it being a problem if Rey Fenix and Pentagon Jr. decide to do singles things. They can always come back. They're brothers. So that they don't have to do an acrimonious split. It doesn't have to be Kane and The Undertaker. They don't have to try and set each other on fire and do 10 things to each other every 5 seconds and then reunite later on. They can just split up and come back and forth. That's the way they can do it. I think, to be honest, the plan initially is wow. And we'll get onto the prediction in a second. Be sure to give us a like here. I think the thing initially was when we started to see Death Triangle with Pac and Pentagon Jr. and Rey Fenix. At the time, as far as I'm aware, the plan was to bring in Trios Championship. So we were going to have a version of the Ring of Honor 6-man tag team champions, and the same with New Japan. That was going to be a thing in AEW. They mention, if you look at anyone's overall career statistics, they have singles, they have tags, and they have trios. And the reason as to why is because eventually they were going to introduce trios championships. You've got trios in the company, like an SCU, like a Jurassic Express, and like a Death Triangle. The reason why they put Death Triangle together was to have the trios championship come in soon. So maybe they stayed together just to get the trios championship up and running whenever Pac can come back, or maybe those plans have just been put on the back burner until another time. We saw how difficult it was to get the TNT Championship going during the pandemic. The title still isn't even finished. So even if plans to make a Trios Championship were underway, they must be on hold now, or maybe we'll see them in the future. We'll have to wait and see when it comes to that one. But in terms of a prediction tonight, it's a tough one. I would probably go with the Lucha Brothers winning it again, and I'll tell you why. Now, because the Young Bucks and FTR, they lost last week. And I think this is the beginning of the Young Bucks and FTR eventual match. Like I mentioned, we're going to get it all out. And for that match, the FTR have to be the heels because they are heels. Even though they've been kind of presented as, respectable baby faces during this run, they're going to be heels very, very soon. I have no doubts about that. So I would predict that the Lucha Brothers get the win here because of some form of something happens. Maybe Blade and the Butcher come out and it all gets a bit brawly. Out come the Young Bucks to make the save for FTR, but in all of this chaos, FTR get distracted. The Lucha Brothers get the win once again, and we have even more increased tension between the Young Bucks and FTR, leading to this eventual heel turn by FTR, which then obviously sets up the eventual match at All Out. I still think that match at All Out between FTR and the Young Bucks will be for the AEW World Tag Team Championships. I believe that in between now and All Out, we will see new AEW Tag Team Champions on an episode of Dynamite in which FTR will defeat Hangman Page and Kenny Omega. That will also facilitate the split between them two, which will also lead to Hangman Page versus Kenny Omega at All Out also. So I think there's a lot of moving parts. I think FTR holds the key to a lot of these things and also does the Lucha Brothers. But as I mentioned, it's the match I'm most looking forward to tonight. I think it's going to be the match that steals the show. I think it's going to be the match that is, in my opinion, an absolute dream match. I wish they'd have promoted it longer, but I'm not going to complain. If I have to see an FTR versus Lucha Brothers match, I'm never going to complain. So really looking forward to this one. But what are your thoughts? Of course, it's all one man's opinion as always. Here on the channel, the best thing here is that we can talk, share our opinions on pro wrestling, have an open discussion, and not have to worry about people getting so angry at each other just for talking about AEW, WWE, or whatever. So really appreciate all your comments recently in the comment section below. Be sure to leave a comment there, and I'll be sure to chat with you, interact. It's one of my favorite things to do on YouTube. Be sure to give us a like as well and share the video where you can. Also, be sure to subscribe to us. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video, along with another video for you to watch. We're over 400 subscribers now. Aim is 500 subscribers next, going up to that aim of 1,000 subscribers, our long-term overall game. The quicker we get to 1,000 subscribers, we will then start doing live streams, watch-alongs, instant reactions, etc. So the quicker we get there, we'll be able to do streams more often, and we'll be able to interact with you guys more often, which is something I really want to do. So the quicker we get there, the better, and we can start getting even more content out on this great channel. Be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms. They're on the screen right now. You can do that 365 Wrestle on Twitter and at WrestleNews 365 on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today, and I'll speak with you again very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.